G'day team, welcome back to the channel. My name's Tony and I'm here back in the workshop with Phil the mechanic. Phil?
Mate, good to be back on the channel.
Always a pleasure to be here in the workshop. And if we're in the workshop, that means, that's right, it is install day. Fantastic. So what we're going to be doing today is installing this bad boy here, which is the EVO 8S WARN winch. This is an 8,000 pound synthetic rope winch, and it is going to greatly increase the recovery capability of this weapon behind me here, the JB74 Suzuki Jimny. All right guys, we're going to do a little review and unbox before we get stuck into the install. And if you are enjoying these installs, make sure you hit that subscribe button for me. It helps the channel out heaps, and we'll be cracking on from there. Go get yourself a nice cold one or a warm brew. It's pretty cold here today, and we're going to get stuck into this one. All right, enjoy. We'll see you soon. All right team, we've got everything out of the box for a quick unboxing and a gear review. Now, a quick disclaimer, WARN did send me this winch for free, so thank you very much for coming on board with the channel and helping out with improving the capability of my beast here. So what I do like to try and do though is to try and make this as unbiased as possible. I get my industry expert, Phil the mechanic here, to have a quick glance over the kit that's here and tell us your initial impressions of the WARN EVO 8S synthetic rope winch.
Mate, what a good bit of kit. I haven't installed a WARN winch for a little while, but yeah, really stepping up their game with their newer models. Look, comes with pretty much everything to get it on and get it moving and get you out there on the trails. Obviously, full set of instructions, the winch itself, already spooled with the synthetic rope, ready to go, hook, all the extra wiring bits and pieces, and your remote. So pretty much everything here, ready to rock and roll.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to get stuck straight into this review and install. Now, as part of this install, we're going to be fitting this to the ARB bar on the front. So it may change a little bit depending on the bar that you're using. We're going to have a bit of a quick scout around to make sure that we don't need to take the whole bar off. That is unfortunately part of installing winches. Sometimes you do have to take your bull bar off and actually fiddle around in there a little bit, but we're going to have a quick checkers on that one to make sure that that is going to be the case or not. But apart from that though, I reckon this is going to be a pretty straightforward install.
Yeah, looking at it, obviously the boys at ARB, they know what they're doing. Plenty of WARN winches on ARB bars, so I think bolting it on should be pretty straightforward. A little bit of cable management, and we'll get all this quality bit of gear on the car.
Also, something that I have failed to mention as well, when we've got our number plate on the front, I've also picked up one of those little flippy jobs on the front, so you're able to actually hide the fair lead of the winch away in behind that, and then you can flip your number plate up. So that's going to be probably the easiest part of the whole job, I reckon. All right, guys, you go get yourself a nice cold one. We are going to get cracking straight into this. This is going to be a great little install, and hopefully the instructions that you see here today will help you with your own install later on. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Okay, so what are we doing here now, mate?
Mate, just getting the number plate off just to get it out of the way, and then we'll have a bit of a squiz through the grill, and we'll have a look at the basically the mounting plate on the front of the bull bar there. The guys from WARN obviously supply in the instructions the dimensions for the bolt pattern on the bottom of the winch. Just make sure it's compatible with the bull bar that we've got here. Being two quality brands, I dare say that's not going to be too much of an issue, but always good to check twice. Then while we're there, we'll also have a look and see if we can maybe sneak the winch up from underneath through once we take off one of the bash plates. If not, worst case scenario, we might have to loosen the front bumper, so the bull bar itself, and just pull that forward just so we've got enough room to get the winch up and in place.
Now, can you show us exactly where the winch mounts on the inside there, mate?
So you can see here, this will be, the winch will mount purely just in behind here, and then obviously you'll have the winch cable and hook will come through this hole here. And then we've also got a nice little feature with the ARB bar here. This top plate here will come off, and the actual unit will sit just up through the top there. That's where you'll plug your remote into, so you can actually utilise the winch while it's in place and tucked in behind the bar.
You beauty. All right, well, let's get this bash plate off the bottom, and we're going to see whether or not we can sneak this bad boy up underneath, you reckon?
Please. Please, that'd be delightful.
You beauty. All right, we'll get in there now.
Alrighty, so we've just got the one of the bottom bash plates off, and hopefully we can sneak the winch up through this little gap here.
I'm going to give you this one here, mate. Let's have a quick squeeze. Use that one.
Alrighty, so just sliding under the Jimny. I don't know, mate. She's a bit tight, but we'll offer it up and have a look. But as you can see, there's a mounting plate up here, and there's also the ability to mount it through the front here as well. So we might have to turn one of the ends of the winch once they're in place, which is quite a common occurrence. And we'll have a look, see how it mounts up. But let's have a gander.
All right, guys, so we've taken off that bash plate that's underneath the front of the ARB bar to have a quick gander and see how this bad boy here is going to be mounted. So, Phil, what do you reckon?
So, it looks like on this particular install, the winch is not going to be mounted as you see it here. It's going to be flipped 90 degrees backwards. So it's going to basically be in this position here. So for the ARB bull bar and the winch, the WARN winch, sorry, it bolts through the front, and then the actual rope will come through the front here. What that does mean is we're going to have to unbolt the clutch for the free spool and just turn that 90 degrees. There's instructions that come in the kit which show you how to do that. And then we'll also remove basically the box here off the top, and there's a mounting plate on the ARB bar to mount that as well.
So it's pretty common to have to relocate these control boxes which are located on the top of your winch when they come out of the box. So most winches, depending on the kind of bar that you have, will have an ability to basically unbolt that, and there's plenty of room in the cables there to actually mount it on the top. And I believe on the top of our bar here, mate, we've got a little plate there that looks like it might slide.
Yeah, a little hatch that will unbolt, and then the control box will poke itself up through there.
Now with this control box as well, this is where your little handheld controller, so this bad boy here, can go. Now the good thing about this controller, it has two modes. It also has a wireless mode where if you're away from the vehicle or whatever because you're on the side of a cliff or something, then you can kind of bring your Jimny back from the dead, so it's all good there. But it also has this here, which is going to be your actual lengthy cable. Now the good thing about these cables is that they're long enough that you can actually go from the winch itself and then go through your your driver's window and actually control it there. So nice little, trigger style controller there. Happy days. All right, we are going to get stuck into changing around this the clutch on the gearbox end and basically flipping it around, and then getting our control box at the top here removed for its relocation, which all should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, look, it all looks like it'll bolt in with no issues, no drilling or whatever else, which is great for this one, but obviously, different applications for different bars and different four-wheel drives.
Exactly right. Okay, guys, stay tuned and we'll get on to the next step, which is going to be to dismantle this bad boy and make sure it works properly. All right, enjoy.
Just undoing the bolts on the gearbox side.
What are we going to do that for?
So, because it's mounted on a line 90 degrees lead over, obviously the mounting holes, if you want to come around this side, Tony. So the winch obviously bolts through here, and obviously on the ARB bar, it mounts vertically, not horizontally. So that's why we've had to flip the winch on its side. Problem is then the clutch handle's in the back. So you need to be able to access it to put it into free spool mode, so you can physically pull the winch rope out, and then be able then to lock it into its gear mode. So then obviously it can the motor can pull the rope back in, and whatever you're pulling out of whatever situation. So look, quite common on a lot of cars. You need to basically adjust it to suit your specific style.
Too easy. And unfortunately, I've got small hands, but I also don't have rubber hands. So trying to get it through. So what Phil's talking about is, see here on the bar at the front, we've actually got these little hatchways. And as they open up, that gains me access to essentially go in there and reach this piece here, this little clutch handle, and that there. Now, if that was at the current position, it would be kind of at the back there, so that's not really an option. So what we're doing here, we can see we've got a little seal in there that we've got to be very careful of. Okay, and then that will come out.
Yeah. We got one bit loaded. I'm just going to pull that out for a sec.
So just going to slide that in that way.
Yeah.
That goes a keyway at the back.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so we've moved this around the other side, mate.
Yeah, so just got it in the correct position. There we go. Obviously, made sure the big O-ring is in place. There's no debris or anything underneath. Just going to get a couple of the bolts in place. Obviously, you know, take your time when you do it. Make sure you don't get any sand or grit in there because it's all moly grease and the main drive gears. So you don't want to get anything in there because it's just going to wear your winch out. And we definitely don't want that.
Happy days.
Yeah, so easy. So obviously when it came apart, you just got to be careful because I got a set of planetary gears in there, plus there's a main shaft that goes to the other side. So you want to make sure when you pull it apart, if you're going to, just take your time, you know, be patient with it, and you won't make any mistakes. But obviously if you're not too keen on pulling your brand new winch apart, then maybe it might be worth taking down some of the lads that you trust with your full drive and get a professional to just swap that over for you.
No worries. That's why I come to you, mate, because you are my professional.
Oh, wow.
All right. What's next after this bit then?
So once this is done, we're going to pull a bit more of the rope out of the winch so we can access those Allen keys, and we'll get the control box off because we're going to remote mount it as per the ARB bar. And then with any luck, we can slide the winch up underneath, and I'll get you to jump under there with me, Tony, and we'll hopefully get it in place and dummy mount it in, and then we can hopefully button it up without too much stress after that.
Happy days.
Easy. All right, guys, we've swapped the clutch end round so it's in the correct position. We've made sure the clutch works afterwards, which is always a good sign. Pulled out some of the rope here to access these Allen key bolts, so we can take the control box off the top of the winch because it's going to be remote mounted. So a couple of little Allen keys, nothing too strenuous. We will get this one out. Obviously don't lose the bolts because you will need them for the install on the bar. So this has got a remote mounted plate which sits above the winch, and it'll just pop through the top of the actual bull bar itself externally, so you can get to, if I roll the winch over here, so on the side here, the rubber bung plug where the cord goes in when you've got the cord mounted to the control, the actual remote itself. Cool, and we've just flipped it over. Let's undo the other two Allen keys. And as you can see on the back there is a bit of extra length on the cable there that they supply with the winch. I am aware if you need to further remote mount it, you can buy an extension set from WARN to mount it further away, or go down and see your local cable specialists and they'll be able to make you some cables up to suit as well. But in our case, we won't need any of that, which is nice. We can just utilise everything that comes with the kit. Oh, we're on.
We're on?
Yep, we've got a little bracket that we can unbolt, and it's going to give us about 15 mil worth of clearance to slide the winch in place. So we don't have to take the bull bar off.
That is
sensational.
pretty good news.
That is damn good news.
Excellent. All right, we'll get stuck into that then.
Easy.
Taking off now, mate.
Just taking off the top cover so that when we bolt the control box in, it'll pop through there so you can access the control box. Anyone think you've been forward driving, Tony? There is a bit of mud and crap up in there. All right, guys, so now we're going to mount the control box. So we're going to get that in place first, just because there's pretty minimal clearance between where the WARN winch is going to be bolted in and where the control box bolts will be. So we'll get that in first and just get the cables in just so they're out of the way. And then once that's done, we'll lift the winch into place and get that bad boy bolted on. So it gives you a couple of different mounting options, as you can see from the plate there. There's obviously a couple of different mounting options that ARB give you. On the back of the WARN winch, there's obviously the 4 bolts which bolt it to the winch directly. They also give you the ability just to run a 2 there. So like anything, I'm a big fan of making sure everything's fastened pretty securely. So if we can get 4 in, we will do so. And we'll get this loaded in and we'll get the winch under from there. All right guys, gonna mount the unit in. Obviously always nice if you can get rid of all the dirt and dust, but that's not bad. It's all pretty clean still there. We'll just feed the wiring through. And the WARN control box will get in under there. A little bit tight on space, but we should be right. There we go, lovely. We are cooking the gas. And then it's just a couple of fasteners from underneath, and it will be in place and sorted. So just reusing the original fasteners, have decided to put some larger flat washers underneath, just so it's got some good purchase underneath, so we don't have anything pulling through or vibrating around. There we go. But yeah, look, pretty straightforward little section of the install here. Just making sure it's in a nice spot. Be aware to make sure the cables that are running out the back of the control box aren't rubbing on the chassis or anywhere sharp. You will have 12-volt power, running from the winch to this control box. So last thing you want is any dead shorts or getting any cables caught or rubbing through, especially when you're out forward driving and you earth something out. You'll know about it when the main fuses blow and you get stranded out in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, just be real mindful of where they run back down to the winch. We'll tighten these up, and that's the control box mounted. There we go.
All right. Okay mate, what's next?
Righto, so control box is in, just made sure the cabling's just tucked out of the way, because we're going to obviously get the winch up inside the bar. You're going to give me a hand, Tony, and get some of these bolts in. Now we've checked all the bolts for length prior to, you can see we've obviously sort of jury rigged it first. Had to modify a couple of bolts just lengthwise. Do double check that, because obviously it's what's holding the winch into the bull bar. And last thing you want is, bolts not being the right length, either A, too short and winding out and doing all sorts of dumb stuff when you're out there trying to enjoy yourself. So
you want to put some thread locker on?
We will, once we bolt the bottom section in.
Section,
yeah.
cool.
So we'll get them in. Obviously, look, especially these front mount style ones, always good to have a mate handy, one to hold in, or even 2 of you to lift it in, and another to run some bolts in. But we'll get it sorted.
Cool. All right, let's get in there. So first off, feed this cable through. All right, that's at the front there, and that's going to go through this fair lead. So you can see that slipping through that way. All right. Now, bottom or top first, mate?
We'll do the bottom bolts first. Don't stress too much about the fair lead, because we can obviously put that in afterwards.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
more just to hold the weight of the winch while we get it in place.
Okay, so that's that first one.
Perfect. Yep, that'd be enough.
Easy. And where's my other bolt? There it is. All right, just drop your left-hand side down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Or my left-hand side, your right-hand side. Okay, so those ones are there.
Sweet.
Now, they are a bit longer because they also house the fair lead. Now, we're just going to put these top ones in. These ones will tighten up a bit. Now, if we can just bring your left-hand side up, there we go. Now, this grill in front is that's a doozy, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it doesn't give you a huge amount of room to roll the bolts in, so it's a little bit fiddly, which is why we sort of want to roll the rear ones in the bottom ones in first, just to hold the weight of the winch, and then you can sort of have a play with it.
I'm just going to try and get these in place a bit.
Let me have a fiddle. I'm sure we can.
Phil's an absolute expert at nuts. Oh, hang on, I've bumped the camera.
Well, up close and personnel.
There we go. Yeah, Phil's got a lot of experience with nuts. Some say in college they used to call him the nut master.
So there is a bit of room in these ARB bars to do this in place. It is a little bit tedious, but if you don't want to take the whole bull bar off, you've got to make some sacrifices. So we've done it in this way around. But look, in the grand scheme of things, not too hard with two blokes. Get it installed. All right, so we'll just put just a medium strength thread locker. You don't want to go too nuts with it. Just make sure it's nice and square. Obviously, I'm just doing these up with a smaller spanner, and I'll go back over them with a large one. Make sure they're nice and tight, just to get it in place. And then we'll check it all, make sure we don't need to make any adjustments, make sure it all is where we want it to be. We'll nip them all up, and then we can move on to wiring it all back up. So connect all the control box back to the motor on the winch, and then we'll run the power and earth leads to the battery. Looking good?
Excellent.
All right, guys, so just been back over all the bolts. So we've just obviously gone over the 4 main bolts that hold the winch to the bull bar. They're all nice and tight. Made sure it's all bolted down square and flush, which is great. I've also had a look just above the winch, in between the winch and the mounting plate for the control box, to make sure that our cable isn't going to catch on any of the bolts heads that hold the control box on. So there's plenty of room between the two, so we're not going to have any issues when you wind all your cable back in that you're going to catch anything and fray it, especially when you're out on the trails. The other thing we've checked is behind the winch to make sure there's plenty of room for the control box cables to run back down to the winch motor. As I said when I bolted the control box on, I want to make sure we've got no fraying or places where we're going to rub cables through onto the body and earth anything out, because that's going to cause you a whole heap of dramas. So at this stage, it's all in, nicely mounted, no issues, and we can get to wiring the motor up to the car.
You beauty. Alrighty, mate, so now that the winch has been secured into place, which is pretty much the hardest part of this task,
Yep.
what is next?
So we're just reconnecting the control box back to the winch motor. So there's a couple of cables that need to be re-bolted back together. Great thing is, the boys at WARN have got colour-coded heat shrink, and they've also paint marked the terminals on the motor, so you cannot get it wrong. So green to green, yellow to yellow, and blue to blue. While we are also under here, there's a last post, which is for the earth. There's a smaller ring terminal that goes on first, and then we need to bolt the earth cable down, which they supply you in the kit. So first things first, we'll get all the original cables all bolted back on, make sure none of the terminals are touching and all that sort of jazz, and then we'll get the earth bolted down, and then we can basically run the power and earth back up to the battery and get the install finished. Cool, so I've just buttoned up the wiring on the back of the motor here, so obviously just put the colours back to their original posts. Obviously make sure that none of the posts or the wires are going to touch. Obviously they've got rubber boots as well. But it's always a good idea to make sure you've got nice amounts of clearance. We've also added the extra earth cable here on the last terminal, and made sure the small wire with the small ring terminal is on there as well. And then this one will route up back to the car's battery shortly. So we'll just get the boots on, and then we'll do some cable management and finish the install. Alrighty, just on the back end of wiring up the WARN winch.
So I've routed all the cables through the chassis, making sure we're not rubbing on any exposed edges or anything silly like that. Had to modify the earth strap because it was way too long, so I've just cut that back and re-crimped it with a battery terminal, some heat shrink, cheese come up apples, and literally just have to do the power cable, and we're done. We can give it a little test.
Do you want to show us where you've routed these cables, mate?
So I've just come up through, there's a nice little spot just above the steering box. So I've come up through there, I've drilled and mounted a cable tie saddle, and then a secondary one, and then routed it up underneath the fuse box, earth cable there, and then run the positive around the back, and we'll chuck it on the positive battery terminal. Easy.
All right, team, so while Phil finishes the last of the wiring up on the battery, I just quickly installed the ARB license plate flippy jobby here. So basically this allows you to flip your number plate down and it hides your fair lead, and then basically once it's winching time, you can basically flip that one up there, which is nice and easy done. Now I've also put the winch hook onto the end of the cable as well. So once I get my, what do they call them? The recovery points. Once I got them there, that's gonna sit onto that recovery point. Happy as Larry there. So, you know, as far as we're concerned, this one's almost done. So once we've finished that last of the wiring, what we're gonna do is basically winch in and winch out, make sure we do a quick function test, and that's all good. And then we'll see you on the closing credits. Enjoy.
WARN Winch.
WARN Winch.
WARN Winch.
The rubber had web feet. All right, team, so the WARN winch is now installed on the JB74 Suzuki Jimny, and the all-important function test is about to begin. So the first thing we're going to do is clutch out and be able to drag a couple of metres of the Dyneema rope out, and then we've got our dual-purpose control here. It can do wired and wireless as well. So what we're going to do is we can reach in this little hidey hole here, reach in, and then we can pay that out. But instead of that, there we go, a little flippy jobby, and we're going to pay that one out. So Phil's going to hold the winch cable there, and then we're going to re-clutch, so we're good to bring in. There we go, we are good to bring in. All right guys, the all-important function test, here we go. Look at that. All the way in. And that last little bit there. All right, team, there you have it. That is the WARN Industries WARN EVO 8S 8,000 pound synthetic rope winch all installed. But first and foremost, Phil, thanks very much, mate.
That was a good little install.
It certainly was. Now, with all of these kinds of installs, guys, if you're confident to do it yourself, give it a crack. However, we would always recommend that you use your trained professionals to get it done if you have any doubts at all. Once again, thank you very much to WARN for getting on board and supporting the channel, and hopefully you gained a little bit of knowledge out of this one yourselves. Okay guys, we're going to see you on the next episode where we're going to be installing the recovery points onto the front of the car. Thanks very much for watching. As always, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a hell of a lot, and helps me bring you all of this content along. All right guys, thanks very much. Have a good one.
Easy.